Hello. All right. We are going to kick off today's media availabilities with Austin Cindric, driver of the number 2 Team Penske Ford. If you have a question for Austin, please raise your hand. We will get a wireless microphone to you. Start with Kelly Crandall.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Austin, two things. First off, what do you think the effects will be of losing Jeremy for the next couple weeks after the wheel came off last weekend?
Yeah, obviously the strengths of our team is having good people, and we've got a lot of depth in the team. So obviously, in the last couple of years, I think race teams have gotten a lot of experience working remote. So I think from that standpoint, a lot of the guys on this team have worked together for a long time. So I think Pocono is probably a softer race to start that with. We actually at Charlotte, had to have Grant as the guy in the box. So I actually had some experience just from the 600. So I don't think it should really affect us a whole lot, but definitely good to get out of the way before the playoffs.
Speaking of the playoffs, you have the win, but how much will you start maybe points watching to not be the guy the lowest with the one win, as many look at whether we're going to have 16 or more winners and then somebody with a win gets bumped out? So do you start points watching to not be that guy?
Yeah, there's certainly a domino effect, and I think you have to be cognizant of it. But at the same time, it wasn't really tough after Atlanta. I looked at it as a wild card race, and after Atlanta, then you can start looking at points. And so from that standpoint, yeah, we've been able to have some pretty good weeks here and get ourselves up in a pretty reasonable position. But I would also say that points picture is incredibly tight, so it certainly could be a talking point. But from my standpoint, I do my job and stay above that top 16. I think the rest works itself out.
All right, let's go to Nathan, Bob, and then Zach.
Nathan Son with a podium finish. Austin, were you surprised at all about the suspensions after, a couple weeks ago, Christopher Bell kind of had a similar situation on pit road and did not have any suspensions from that? Were you surprised at all that NASCAR did suspend the crew members?
Yeah, obviously that's been a pretty consistent penalty throughout the year, and I would say with the 20 car, that was probably the anomaly, and perhaps a different situation. NASCAR has the data, and NASCAR makes the call, and that's what we got.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, kind of following up on that. I mean, were you expecting a penalty because of how far your wheel traveled?
I knew there's certainly the possibility for the penalty, and it's certainly not the position you want to be in. But like I said, NASCAR has the data, and NASCAR makes the call. I think there's certainly a strategy to that for sure. Obviously, 4 weeks. I mean, we're pretty close to the start of the playoffs, but I don't really think that you're going to ask NASCAR to just rethink what they thought. So I don't think with the data that we have and they call it NASCAR made, I don't think there's any reason to appeal it. So move forward and adjust accordingly, and try and have some good weeks here and get ready for the playoffs.
Let's go to Zach.
Zach Sterniolo at NASCAR.com. Austin, I'm curious, this whole season has been full of really diverse tracks. There hasn't been really a stretch of consistent races one week after the other. I know you've been on a good streak lately, but how difficult has that made your rookie year trying to adapt to this new car?
I think it certainly adds a lot of layers. When the weeks are going right and you feel like you've maybe figured something out, you show up the next week and you end up qualifying 28th or wherever I was last week. So it's the highs and lows, man. I think it's been challenging for everybody to find consistency, but that's what makes showing up the racetrack every week a new opportunity. So this week is certainly no different. Like you said, there's no real consistency in the tracks and the schedule, which I think makes it fun for the race fans to tune in every weekend. I think it makes it fun for me to prepare differently for every weekend. So, but to your point, it makes the challenges different every weekend.
All right, let's come up front to Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I know that you're so chill and your team operates like a well-oiled machine, but what is the one thing that the driver has a challenge with when you have the suspension of 2 members of the pit crew and then also the crew chief? What's the one thing you have to deal with as the driver? I know you can make it happen, but what do you struggle with?
Yeah, it's a loss in normalcy, which is basically communication. Communication is very important in this sport and making quick decisions. And I feel like with the way that strategy plays out at Pocono, it's like I said, it's kind of a softer race to start with because you can kind of already make your own decisions and you got time to pit under green and kind of already make your own strategy, flipping stages and so on. So not that I really know what a race strategy is quite yet, but from that standpoint, you have a bit more time to react at a track this big. Whereas like if it was Bristol or Martinsville, that's a pretty tough position to put into somebody who usually is at the race shop, doing races remote like Grant does. But Grant's done it quite a few times for the team already in the past. So and like I said before, we worked together at Charlotte. So I don't really see much of a challenge there. Obviously, introducing new pit crew members is certainly a challenge. That group has been a group that I've actually raced with for quite a while. So having a few changes, that certainly changes the choreography of those guys. And, they obviously practice throughout the week, anticipating, a change. And so I expect those guys to be in good shape and just do the race accordingly and play as it lies, I guess.
Any additional questions for Austin? All right, Austin. Thanks and good luck this weekend.
Thanks.